Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and today we're having a look at another example of their signature style, and it's also the latest release from one of my favourite series of beers that they do. So we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in for the Gothenburg beers because channel tradition and all that jazz. But we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful OO Brewing. So this is the latest installment from their 50/50 series. This one is the 50/50 Amarillo Citra. As always, it comes in at 6.5% ABV and it is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, as I've told you in previous reviews, OO Brewing have two series of beer that they release from regularly. The 50/50, which is a series of dual hopped New England IPAs, and they've also got the 100 series, which are single hopped New England IPAs, both 6.5% ABV, and they release beers from the 50/50 every month, and they seem to be releasing the 100s a little bit more frequently at the moment as well. But this beer was released as part of the Lokal Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March of 2021. And yeah, as I always say to you, I keep an eye out for these ones, and I think they're very good for kind of educational purposes, if you like. Like me, if you're a big ingredients nerd, then these guys can really teach you a lot about different hops. But yeah, Amarillo and Citra are two hops that we know quite well. This is a little bit of an old school combination actually. Both of these hops are American. Amarillo tends to be about 12% alpha acid, whereas Citra's a little bit higher at about 14. Amarillo's got a big oily orangey character to it. We quite recently had the 100 Amarillo from these guys, and then one of the very first beers that I had, I think it might have actually been the first in the 100 series, was the 100 Citra. But Citra tends to give you a lot of mangoes and some other kind of little tropical fruit complexities, and sometimes a little bit of a citrusy side as well. But yeah, we know these two hops very, very well, so I think this is going to be a nice kind of more old school type New England IPA. So I think this one should be very, very interesting. I'm curious to see how it turns out, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. The beer that we had last month, if I remember rightly, was the Simcoe Citra, or Citra Simcoe, whatever way round it was. So yeah, this should be another nice addition to the series, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from OO Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about OO Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So OO Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2011 by Olaf and Ole Andersson, who are childhood friends. The OO, of course, is derived from their names, Ole, Olaf. But for many years, these guys were also avid homebrewers, and they'd always been interested in beers. Ole in particular was apparently heavily involved in the Gothenburg beer scene since pre-drinking age, which I believe in Sweden is 20 officially. I think you have to be 20 to drink in bars and stuff like this, or maybe 19. One of them, for Systembolaget, you have to be one age, and to drink in bars it's the other, and I forget which way around it is. It's a little bit too old, I think, anyway, but that's it. But Ole was the original head brewer at Stigbergets Brewery, and this is where the OO beers were originally produced. But while Ole is taking care of the brewing side of things, Olaf manages the business side of the brewery, and he was working for a period of time at a marketing agency in Copenhagen and doing a lot of his work with OO from distance. But I believe now he's based in Gothenburg once again and is 100% involved at the company, if you like, but apparently these guys just wanted to make beers that they enjoyed drinking themselves, and they homebrewed for a little while before getting involved in it too, from what I understand. But in April of 2017, Ole made the decision to leave Stig Brewery and invested his time fully in his own company, OO, and the company invested in a brewery in Hisingen near the Tingstedt Bridge, and it's equipped with a 2,000 litre brew kit, which means they can brew up to 500,000 litres of beer per year. In the first year they brewed around 100,000 litres, and they're basically going through a plan to expand up to capacity over the next few years. In 2019 they brewed around 300,000 litres, and I couldn't find a figure for how much they brewed across 2020, but I'm guessing they might not have grown as much over 2020 because of this whole COVID-19 thing that's going on. But yeah, as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 70 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and yeah, they will no doubt have some more coming out over the next little while. I always keep an eye out for the 100 and the 50/50s from these guys in the Lokale Småskaligt, and then if they've got anything else that's interesting coming out, I tend to pick up those as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about OO Brewing for the moment. We've done many reviews from these guys before. There must be about 30 or 40 different beer reviews on the channel from them. But yeah, a really, really good brewery, very well respected in the New England Hazy IPA category. So yeah, always nice to review new beers from these guys. But yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little quick look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it's pretty typical of what we would expect from the 50/50 series. Each hop, of course, has its own kind of colour code when it comes to OO Brewing. So yeah, orange is Amarillo and yellow is Citra in this case. So yeah, Simcoe, if I remember rightly, was... I'm trying to remember what colour Simcoe was. I think Simcoe was blue, was it not? And then before that we had Mosaic, which was green. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I do like it with the Amarillo though, because orange for the kind of orangey flavours that you get from Amarillo, and then yellow for the sort of mangoey flavours that you tend to get from Citra. But yeah, as I said earlier, 6.5% New England IPA, this one. It was released as part of the Lokale Småskaligt through Systembolaget here in Sweden for March 2021, as I mentioned earlier too. This can cost me roughly about I think it was 45 Swedish kroners, which is kind of typical for a New England IPA here in Sweden. So about €4.50, £4, about $5, $5.25 American actually. So yeah, certainly looks the part, and I think we can get this guy out and get on with the tasting now. So another 6.5% New England IPA, the 50/50 Amarillo Citra from OO Brewing in Gothenburg up on the Swedish west coast. Looking forward to this, I have to say. So yeah, there we go. There we go. I think this one should be pretty nice actually. So there we go. There we go. So as you can see, and as you would expect from one of these New England IPAs, it's poured with a lovely finger actually of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. I wouldn't even describe that as creamy. It comes across as perfect white. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but I mean overall it looks pretty nice. If we shine the light through this one, it actually does have a good little bit of haze to it, this one. But you know, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs you're going to come across for a 6.5%er, but yeah, it certainly looks the part. In terms of colour, I would say that this one, it's not quite a bright yellow, if that makes sense. It looks a little bit more like it's kind of leaning a bit towards the kind of amber side of things. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices and things like that. So yeah, I like how that, I do like that in this case. So for me, I would say this one is more like a kind of mixed tropical juice rather than being like a pineapple or a mango juice or anything like that. So yeah, I think it goes together really nice in that sense. Sorry, dog's going absolutely crazy at the moment. Oh, they're a pain sometimes. But yeah, certainly looks the part. And yeah, I think it's got a little bit here. As I say, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that you'll come across, but I certainly like how it goes together. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. Lost my train of thought there because the dog's just going mental, but yeah, it looks the part for sure for a New England IPA, and I would say, yeah, leaning a little bit towards the kind of amber side of things, which is good. But remember, the colour of these beers are dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But that's dependent in the first instance on the malts that you use in the first place. But then, you know, adjuncts and barrel aging and stuff can also play a role in that, but that's not at play in this particular beer. And the level of haze that you get in these New England IPAs is dependent on the oat and the wheat content, in fact, as well. So yeah, certainly looks good for a New England IPA. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. So yeah. Yeah, so the fruity side of things in this beer is immediately obvious if you know these hops, and we are very familiar with these ones. It's giving you kind of exactly what you would expect. But the malty side of this beer is I think is really nice as well. So if you take the aroma in quite deeply, you've got a nice little bit of a wheaty, bitey sort of thing at the back of the nose. The malty base in this one, I think, is quite well balanced in a sense. As I've told you in previous reviews, I think with New England IPAs, you can take it in sort of 6 different directions. You can get a sort of a kind of farmhousey and yeasty one. You can get a little bit more of a kind of rye, grainy sort of one. You can get the sort of wheaty, bitey ones, oaty, creamy. You can get the sort of barley malt leaning, bready ones, and then you can also get some sort of sweet, brown sugary leaning New England IPAs these days. But quite often, New England IPAs will exhibit characteristics from a couple of those different categories that I've mentioned to you, but it certainly goes about its business really nicely, this one. So you can smell that sort of big, soft, white bready base to the beer. There's a bit of oaty creaminess to it as well, which I do like, and then you've got a nice kind of you do have a nice little bit of wheaty bitiness there at the back. So there's a good bit of stuff going on there. Soft white bready notes, oaty creaminess, and then a good little bit of a wheaty, bitey quality to this one as well. There's a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing coming out of the aroma too, which I do quite like. But it's not overly noticeable in this one. I would say this is a more bready and oaty leaning New England IPA with a little bit of wheaty bitiness in the background too, and just a little tiny touch of sweetness. So yeah, for me, mainly bready and oaty, I would say. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, I think we've covered the malt base as much as we need to. On the hoppy side of things, there's a tiny little bit of earthiness out of this one. It's got a big floral component though, and you would expect that from these 2 high alpha acid American hops. So yeah, nice big floral aromatic notes. Yeah, I think the green component of this beer does lean towards the kind of floral aromatic side of things. The grassy component of the beer, I think is quite nice as well. There's a little bit of zestiness to it, and this is one thing I've kind of discovered about Amarillo in recent times. It actually does have a good little bit of zest to it, whereas before I always regarded it as more of just a kind of oily, orangey sort of thing. But orange is inherently zesty, of course, but the grassy, the sort of zesty, grassy quality from Amarillo isn't something that I'd really appreciated, I guess, or kind of realised fully until quite recently. But yeah, the green component of this one, mainly a nice bright floral note, but it's got a good little bit of a zesty kind of grassy character to it as well. But when it comes to the fruity side of things, this beer is exactly what you'd expect. You can smell a little bit of that more pungent passion fruity sort of thing, which is one of the subtleties of Citra. There's a good bit of a kind of big mango quality to this one as well, quite a juicy mango. And you can pick up little hints of apricot and things like that. Remember, Citra is a very complex hop in itself, so that makes it ideal for single hopped IPAs. It just works. It goes together really, really well, this beer, from that perspective. Citra is always a very good hop to put in your beers if you want a bit of fruity complexity. But of course, when it comes to Amarillo, for me, Amarillo is a very straight shooting hop, lovely, big, oily, orangey notes. I think the Citra makes it smell a little bit more kind of juicy. And in this beer, it doesn't come across quite as oily as I was thinking. It might. I think when it was on its own, when we had the 100 Amarillo, was that back in like December or November or something? trying to remember. But yeah, the 100 Amarillo, the oranges came across as a little bit less zesty and maybe a wee bit more kind of oily in the aroma, but they really show the zest in the flavour. With this one, you can smell a little bit more of a zesty quality out of them, but at the same time, you've got that kind of oily orange note. And I'm glad to see that Amarillo's getting a bit of attention again recently, because when Mosaic came out, that basically was the end for quite a bit of time from Amarillo. Because Mosaic had, you know, a lighter kind of tangerine note to it, and it also had a little bit more complexity as well. So a lot of people just kind of forgot about Amarillo, but it really seems to be making a little bit of a comeback. It was the same with Citra as well. With Simcoe when Galaxy first appeared. You know, Galaxy really came in and took over from Simcoe, but in recent times it's nice to see sort of older hops coming back, but there's always new hops coming out, so it's there's always stuff coming out. So I mean, Talus is the latest one. There's a few other hops floating around out there now, so yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why I enjoy doing the 50/50 series and examining the hops a little bit more sort of in depth, if you like. But yeah, this beer is kind of exactly as you would expect if you know the brewery and you know the hops. It goes together really nicely in the aroma, so take a bit of time to ponder that over, but I think it's about time that we have a taste of this beer then. So yeah, let's have a go at it and see how we do. So this one is the 50/50 Amarillo Citra IPA, coming in at 6.5% from OO Brewing up in Gothenburg on the Swedish west coast. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's another, it's another solid beer from OO Brewing. It strikes me as being a little bit more oily than some of the other ones that I've had in this 50/50 series so far, but it works. It does work actually. So again, a big thumbs up to OO Brewing. One of the things I'll add about this 50/50 series and the 100 series as well, these are most definitely not the most striking beers that you're going to get from OO Brewing. Probably the best beer I've had from these guys would be the Charismatico. I think that's actually going to be re-released in April as part of the Localis Muscovite, and I would highly recommend that one. That's probably the best IPA that I've had from these guys in recent years. But you know, the Muscles, which was re-released, I can't remember if that was this month or last month, but that was re-released recently. That was always one of the better West Coasty IPAs that these guys did. So yeah, there's these beers are not the craziest and most striking ones that they do, but they always tend to be really pretty solid. And I like it how they kind of play around with the malt base and stuff like that to accentuate the individual hops a little bit more. So these beers, as I said, are very, very good when it comes to educating yourself about the characteristics of individual hops. That's why I enjoy doing these ones for you. Spike Brewery in Gothenburg as well these days, they seem to have that Who Dat series now, which is single hopped. We had the Who Dat Galaxy, I think was the last one, come to think of it, and there's another one coming out in April which you'll see me review for sure. So yeah, the OO Brewing 50/50 100 series are good for this, and then as I say, Spike have got the Who Dat series now as well, so those are absolutely worth checking out. But yeah, this is another solid beer from the 50/50 series. And it just strikes me as being a little bit more oily compared to some of the other ones that we've had. But yeah, it feels very familiar, this beer, because you know, we've had so many from OO Brewing in the 100 and the 50/50 series, and you know, this is a little bit of a kind of age-old hop combination, come to think of it. So yeah, it works, certainly does work. So where to start with this beer then? Straight away across the middle of your palate, you've got that really nice kind of smooth white bready quality there. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. It does get a little touch grainy the further you go into the aftertaste. I'm noticing that in this one there is a little bit of graininess in there, but on top of that sort of white bready quality there, you can feel it kind of thickens up a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. But you've got a nice little bit of an oaty note there. It's almost like if you go down the middle line of your tongue, in that middle third of your palate, you've got a nice kind of oaty character. You've got a nice little bit of an oaty character just coming out of it, and you can feel the oats getting a little bit sweeter and almost a little bit drier the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer too. So yeah, it definitely, I think this one leans a little bit more towards the oaty side of things the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, middle of your palate is fairly straightforward. Soft white bready base to it from the barley malts. On top of that, you've got a nice kind of smooth oaty character, and then yeah, in the very centre of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original. You've got a little bit of a sort of Werther's Original quality to it as well. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But on that middle, on the board, on either side of that middle third of your palate, if you go to the border regions, you've got a little bit of that, you can feel that the breadiness sort of thickens up a little bit. You've got a nice little bit of a kind of grainy, more bread crusty type vibe to the beer. So yeah, I mean, these are things that you would normally come across for sure. But on the back third of your palate, I would say that this beer is distinctly more kind of wheaty. You do get a good little bit of wheaty bitiness on the back third of your tongue, and again, you get the more yeasty characteristics just sitting on top of that. The back third of your palate does feel distinctly more thick, if you like, or a bit fluffier almost than the middle third of your palate. So at the back, the thickness is kind of like this, but as you move further forward, you can feel it just kind of gradually fades away, and then it becomes quite dense on in the middle of that, in the middle third of your palate as well. You can feel that all of those things become a little bit more dense in that middle third of your palate. But yeah, the malty and yeasty components of this beer are quite familiar if you know the brewery. It is very, very familiar. So yeah, the focus is meant to be on the hops, so that's not surprising. But yeah, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer fairly comprehensively. So yeah, let's look at the hoppy side of things then. The more that I drink of this, the more I'm getting the more I find that the orangey notes are sweetening up as well, but certainly like that. But yeah, on the back corners of the palate, there's a little tiny bit of earthiness there, but as you move further forward in this one, you do get a nice big floral aromatic note out of this one. It's got a wee touch of spice to it, but it really comes across as more bright and floral in that sense. So yeah, I mean, this is the thing that these kind of beers show you. With a lot of these high alpha acid American hops, in many beers they'll use Columbus as a bittering hop, and that's the one that gives you that big distinctive spicy character. But a lot of these hops are capable of giving you these big sort of spicy and big green notes as well. It all depends on when during the wort boil you boil them. As I've told you in many reviews, if you add the hops in the early stage of the wort boil, you're going to get more bitterness out of them, but as you go through the wort boil, you've got a progressive trade-off from bitterness in favour of flavour and aroma. So yeah, I would be interested to know when they make their hop additions in these beers as well. Are they adding, little bits as they kind of go along, as they do with the sort of the Dogfish Head 60, was it the 60, 90 and 120 minute IPAs that they do? So yeah, I would be curious to know when exactly they're doing their hop additions, if it's just a simple early addition to give you a bit of bitterness and then a later addition to give you the flavour and aroma, and then dry hopping of course as well. So yeah, that would be interesting to know. But you've got a nice big bright floral aromatic note about this one, and it does just show you a little hint of spiciness. But when you've got Amarillo at 12% alpha acid and Citra at 14% alpha acid, it's not a surprise. I don't know what the beta content of these two hops are, but beta is more about how long the bitterness kind of lasts in a sense. That's the higher your beta rating, it means that your hops can hold bitterness in beer for a longer period of time. So ideally you've got a high alpha and a high beta content in a lot of the hops, but I'm not sure how many what the best hops are for high beta content, but that's your main difference between alpha and beta acids in beer. But anyway, round the front curve of the palate of the beer, you get round the front curve of your palate, the beer gives you a nice sort of zesty, kind of grassy kind of thing. And yeah, I think that's the Amarillo that's contributing a lot to that. But yeah, the green component of this beer I think works very nicely, and it builds a good bridge with that slightly bitey, wheaty quality that you'll find in the beer. But as I always say, on the front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And again, pardon me, as I've said quite a few times, these two hops are fairly familiar to me because of past experiences, and you know, they're two of the original high alpha acid American hops. But on that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a thicker, bready, yeasty kind of thing. Again, you do get a bit of that grainy quality sitting underneath. Then you've got a smooth sort of white bready character just underneath it as well. So yeah, I think that works. That works very, very nicely too. But yeah, at the back of that, front third of your palate, it's the back half of the front third of your tongue is more about the Citra, whereas the front half is a little bit more about the Amarillo. And I've always found that, yeah, you get the more citrusy notes at the front of your tongue, at the very front of your tongue, then the tropical notes come out just a little bit behind that. So at the very back of that front third of your tongue, you've got a nice little bit of a passion fruity quality in there, a little bit of a grapefruity kind of thing. But as you move further forward, it's got a little bit more of a kind of oily mango type quality to it, and that's the Citra, of course. Citra can give you that stronger passion fruit, that big sort of pungent flavour. Then you get more of the lighter mango in there. It's got a wee touch of apricot, I think, to it as well. But on the front half of that front third of your palate, you've got a more oily, orangey, zesty sort of thing. So yeah, the orangey notes I think get a little bit sweeter the further you go into the beer, or the more that you drink of it, in other words. But yeah, Amarillo really shows that big oily orange characteristic that made me fall in love with it all those years ago. I love a bit of Amarillo. I'm a sucker for an orangey leaning hop, to be honest with you. I like I like Azaka, I like Waiti, Mosaic. I like all of these orangey leaning hops, so Amarillo is a bit of an old friend for me, I would say. But yeah, nice big oily orangey characters there, and the zestiness that you get out of this one, as I said, that's something that I hadn't been so familiar with in terms of Amarillo until quite recently. But the Amarillo is really giving you a bit of zestiness on the front kind of tip of your tongue. But Citra will contribute to that, in fairness, as well. Citra is capable of giving you a little bit of a lemon limey kind of note, and you do detect little hints of that mixing in with the grassy notes on the very tip of your palate too. But yeah, it's a really nicely done beer, this one. It's another solid IPA. As I've said, these 50/50 series beers are not the most striking of ones that you're going to get from OO Brewing. They do tend to just be like really pretty damn solid and well executed beers. The 100 series you can say the same about. But yeah, I think this one's really quite nice. It ticks a few boxes for me in the fact that it's a little bit more oily. I like a little bit of an oily fruity character in the New England IPAs. But I would really love to see OO doing a 50/50 West Coast and a 50/50 East Coast. I think that would be a really nice sort of change of pace for these guys, if you like. But I don't know if they've got the capacity to do that necessarily. So yeah, it would be cool to see a 100 West Coast and a 100 East Coast as well, and the same thing in the 50/50 series. So yeah, because I think these hops really do behave differently in the New Englands and the West Coasters. They come across as a lot more oily in West Coasters, whereas they're a lot more kind of soft and juicy in the New England. So you can see different things. And I mean, some of these hops will behave really interestingly in black IPAs as well, but maybe we're stretching it a bit too far if we ask them to do like a 50/50 black IPA or a 100 black IPA. But ideas for the future, maybe. Ideas for the future. But yeah, let's round off the review with a look at the mouthfeel then. So once again, this beer is kind of mid-bodied. Carbonation is really quite smooth in this one. Like I said, this is one of the more, it strikes me as one of the slightly more oily 50/50 series beers that I've had in recent times, so I can certainly appreciate that with this one. Yeah, definitely one of the more kind of oily ones that I've had from them, but smooth, oily, and a little bit slick. I think that probably summarises the mouthfeel quite well. In terms of hoppy bitterness, this one feels a little bit more bitter, actually. I do wonder if this is maybe for a little bit higher in IBU. I don't think it's only 30, it might be about 40 or maybe even a little touch more than that. But remember, when it comes to telling IBUs, that's one of my weaker points of beer reviewing, I would say. So yeah, it strikes me as a little bit more better, this one, maybe about 40 or maybe even 50 IBUs at a push. The carbonation, as I say, is very smooth, and the malt base, it's got a lovely smoothness to it. The bready notes kind of thicken up a little bit the more you go into the aftertaste, and it's got just a little bit of wheaty bitiness too. There's a wee touch of sweetness there, from the alcohol notes, but not a lot. Then you've got a good mix of juicy tropical fruit, but I think the oily orange kind of starts to dominate the beer, and it becomes a bit sweeter from that orangey side of things the further you go into it as well. But yeah, as I say, another very solid beer from OO Brewing, and I would recommend that you check this one out. It feels like an old friend, this, because we know this combination and these two hops individually quite well. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from OO Brewing. We will return to these guys next month, I'm sure. This was another addition to the 50/50 series, and I think we've got a 100 and a 50/50 to take a look at next month. So looking forward to those. Check out my social media, check out OO Brewing. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. This is the 50/50 Amarillo Citra New England Hazy IPA at 6.5% from OO Brewing in Gothenburg on the Swedish west coast. Slange, skull, cheers.